everybody. It's Safi and Marco, dish out on the movies. And tonight was a double Masterchef night. Junior Masterchef night. We didn't know that, though. We watched the first one, and then we found out while the second one was already half over that they had decided to air it back to back. Well, so we'll have to bring the other half of the review. Well, it might be the way it works out. It'll come right away after each other. But
yeah, it will.
We're not going to be able to do it till tomorrow morning.
Well, it was funny because what happened was I was looking on Twitter and I saw all these little videos from the wrestling episode, and I thought, wait a second, wait, what? Like, are they airing that episode too? Like, why are they doing a double when it's almost over? Like, they're trying to like rush through it. Like, they just want to rush through everything nowadays.
Well, the only thing I can think of is they have that other MasterChef show on, so they want to get this gone so they can concentrate on this other one. I don't know. Make room for shitty new summer shows. Sorry about my language, but usually some of the stuff that comes in the summer isn't so good. Anywhere, not just this station.
And I discovered the truth when it was already like 9:30. So it was already halfway through the episode. Anyway, Safi, this is called Alexander in a Box. Alexander from season 1.
I was going to say, why do they say that? But the way they showed him, it was like a big gift.
And Safi,
okay,
isn't it hilarious how we watched and reviewed season 1, and then immediately after we get to see both finalists in different MasterChef shows?
Yeah, it's interesting. But they're both good in their own way. Alexander being the one who was the best, and he won, of course, over the other girl. But still, that's what she wants to do. But I hope she learns how to make more than Chinese food. And I'm sure
I think she does. I just think that she relies on that because she knows that that's what she's strongest at doing.
Yeah,
which is the same thing for a lot of people, where they'll just do what they want to do, like what they're comfortable with doing, and they won't try other things. Like with Gummy Worm Molly, sometimes before she would just rely on like making a typical barbecue type of meal.
Yeah.
And now she finally branched out, and wow, look, it paid off. Anyways, this episode starts off with a challenge where they all have to fillet salmon, a huge salmon.
Oh, wow, it looks so good, too.
And they have to cut up little fillets, and whoever has the most accurate fillets... Safi, hold my phone while I go take care of yours. God, Safi.
That's just the sports, like a score coming through.
They do that challenge. Safi, talk about like what your thoughts were on the challenge.
Well, it was a large salmon, like he said, and it was so funny because Ivy, that's the little girl, wears pearls. The boy, the contestant, had to hand her the salmon because it was as big as she is. That's how big they were. And so that was nice of him, Grayson, to get that for her and hand it to her and not make her get it all by herself. And anyway, well, they had to make sure it had to be filleted and fixed up exactly how Gordon and a tag team of him and Alexander
It wasn't a tag team. That's not.
Well, they were next to each other.
Safi, a tag team is where you do something and then you tag someone in and they work on it and then they tag you in and you can come back. That's why it's called tag.
Okay,
because it's one person working at one time and then they tag someone else in. It was just them working together.
They were working together, and
it was pretty weird. I mean, you got to admit, like, it was pretty weird because, like, he didn't need that at all. Like, why didn't he just have Alexander do it? Is this because his ego is just that big?
Yeah. But I
Like,
mean, it had to be perfect. It had to
it was
be
weird.
they do everything cut around the head. I had to be deboned, and they had to get, and the one who, what they had to do is they had how many minutes was it, 10 or 15?
15.
They had 15 minutes, and there's 5 of them now, right? 5 contestants.
Whoa, thank God.
And so they had 15 minutes to do exactly what they did. And then when they would cut their fillets, you've seen a fillet of salmon. They're all, they're cut like a chunky style. And so they had to be like all the similar sizes and thickness. And so that means that they would see that whether you are not even removed enough of the bone and everything. So,
which I gotta say, like, the one who had the biggest advantage was the one who won the challenge. Because Leah, she's really good.
but you know what she said?
She said she has filleted tons of fish with her father.
Right. So she's had a
big
ton
fish, small fish,
experience.
All types of fish.
Right.
And so, like, no shit, she's gonna win. Like, oh, that's kind of sad. Like, you know what I mean, Safi? Like, isn't that kind of fishy?
Well, and there were other kids there in the group that one of them was done faster, and they were pretty much, most of them were quicker, but she just worked steadily and carefully, and she did the best, of course.
It's reminiscent of in season 1 when Alexander was like, I cook for my family 5-6 days a week. And all the other kids were like, they were all scared shitless. And it's like the same thing where, she clearly had the advantage with this challenge.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
if she has all this experience filleting fish and she didn't fillet it correctly, that would be like the biggest embarrassment of the whole season for her.
Well, for her family, too. That's what I said. But there's no way, with that much experience, I don't think you could make a mistake that would be significant. Because it's just, I mean, after doing that many, it probably becomes ingrained in your mind. And
I don't know who the worst one was. Like, you could say Molly, Gummy Worm Molly, but she had, as they said, extremely accurate portions and cuts.
Right.
So you can't
she's used to doing that.
You can't say she's the worst, in my opinion. Like,
No.
just because she didn't fillet the whole fish in a time limit, it was about most accurate. So I don't know who's the worst, because it was funny too. They went around and every single person, they were like, it's not perfect. Okay, this is not perfect. And it's like, okay, like, I don't know. Safi.
Yeah, and so you wondered what they were going to do. But anyway, the person who had the most accurate cuts,
we already discussed that,
won an advantage. And the advantage was that
immunity.
They exempted them from having to participate in a not being able to be kicked off the show. They were exempt. So,
I was worried for Gummy Worm Molly because I thought I could have sworn that they showed a preview where Molly was crying.
Well, she was crying because somebody else that she liked a lot got evicted.
No, I could have sworn I saw a shot where she was crying and other kids came over to comfort her or something. I don't know. But I was worried for her because it seemed like this was not her day, but it was really not the librarian's day. Ava, she had the worst day probably in the whole season. Oh, of course, maybe being on a team with who was worse, but in terms of her worst solo day, this is definitely her worst day. And she was so close to winning the first challenge, she lost, and then in the second challenge, which was connected to the first, she lost that one really badly, and she went fucking home. So she really had a bad day.
Yeah, it was very sad, and everybody was sad about it because she was very liked.
Yeah, because I thought she'd be in the finale. I thought
Me too.
there's no way she's not going to be in the finale. She's so much better than the majority of the people that competed this season in terms of the competition.
Yeah.
And
she was just a very nice, personable person.
Yeah.
So.
Another thing I liked was that Alexander was there the whole episode.
Yes.
Because I really get sick and tired of being advertised to as like, oh, this episode has this guest in it. And then I watch the episode and the guest is there for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they're gone.
And that has happened a million times.
And it's like, why don't you stay there the whole time? Are you that busy that you can't just stay there the whole time? Like, it's really nice that Alexander was there the whole time. The whole time.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And he was very, very helpful and...
very professional.
Yes. Very professional.
In the second half of the episode, they had to make a dish out of the salmon. And one of the things that were, one of the times where he displayed his professional etiquette, I guess you'd say, is that my fair Masterchef Junior, she was making a bouillabaisse, and she didn't even turn her stove on at all because she didn't want her stuff to burn. And Alexander told her, turn your stove on. Like, you probably want to turn your stove on to cook your food. Like, you're not at home. You know, there's a time limit. And so, yeah, and she really needed to because it's a dish where it's time sensitive, especially since it usually takes hours. Yeah. And I don't, and this is another thing too, I don't understand the fixation with trying to make these things that take hours in like 2 seconds. Like, what is the fixation with wanting to rush the food process now? Like, it's bad enough that they rush all the television shows, they rush all the movies nowadays. Why they gotta rush food? Like, what's the deal with fucking making these 45-minute moles like Miss Blondie and MasterChef Back to Win? Safi.
I'm fine.
She, remember her? You know who I'm talking about, the overrated one. You know, the one that the judges thought was really attractive.
Oh, yeah.
She made a mole for her audition.
And it was not good.
And it was not good, and she got sent home. And I'm not saying like that's the worst thing in the world, but I'm just asking, like, what is the fixation? For a long time the fixation was deconstructing shit. Like, oh, I made a turtle deconstructed. I made a lobster tail deconstructed. And it's like, who cares? Like, why don't you just make normal food?
I know.
And now the fixation, I guess, is making food that takes hours in 5 minutes so that we can just, like, rush the process of making good food. Like, it's just clear that, nowadays you have a lot of people who don't know how to cook. They don't respect the process of cooking, because anyone who would respect the process of cooking wouldn't attempt or even think about wanting to make this type of thing in a short time and rushing it. Right, Safi?
Yep.
What do you think of that?
I don't know. It's kind of weird because it just worked out okay for them. But I mean, normally there's just certain things that you have to have hours for it to cook. I mean, you could just eat it then and there right at the beginning after you get everything cooked up, warmed, heated, everything. But the thing is, it's that time in the pan or the pot that everything congeals and it needs some time, and that hurrying up the process isn't going to make it better.
Well, my fair Masterchef Junior, she still did a really good job, and it's so hilarious that you have this little tiny girl, and she's outdoing all these people from past seasons, and the fact that she's gotten this far is just hilarious, because it feels like a fluke. But then you go back, and this is another good reason why we watched season 1, is because you go back and you think about, what if they didn't allow Troy to bully Sarah in season 1? She would have probably gotten into the finale, guaranteed. Because this is what happens when you have someone like that, where she's really, really young, but she's really talented, and she's not hindered by a bully. Like in that restaurant episode, she didn't really get bullied at all because he was so focused on bullying the other girl. So that was the only reason. And so I think that that's something else to be, or to observe, is the fact that this young girl, she is Sarah if Sarah wasn't hindered by a bully and by age discrimination. Because it seemed like in season 1, like, they were really discriminatory against the youngest chefs, which probably, I bet a lot of it had to do with stuff off camera, like seeing them do goofy things off camera, maybe, and like judging them based off of that rather than what we see on the show.
Yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes activity that we're not allowed to see, and there's videos on it too on YouTube, what they don't show you, what they don't tell you, etc., etc. We can only go by what we see, and the girl got eliminated. She was very popular because she was just a very affable, friendly. They're all friendly. You're really rooting for all of them because I don't see any real. Maybe Leah, but it's not as clear as it's been in years past about who's going to pull it out and when. I say pull it out because, it looked like the girl, Molly, from Missouri, who's been in a million barbecue championships all over the country with her dad, so she knows exactly about competition.
Well, I hope that she wins this season. I want her to win now. I wanted Ava to win, but now she's gone, so I want Gummy Worm Molly to win.
Out of those, Leah's the only one who's, I don't know, because, see, they're all very affable, friendly.
They're all very good.
They all get along really well, and they're not jerks. They're not like they think they're better than any of them.
They're not fakes and frauds. They're not actors. They're not child actors who are using a cooking show to boost their acting resumes.
And they support each other, basically. And so, I don't care. But Molly, it looked like, because we were talking about the salmon business, she could not get, you had to split it like in half, like long way, and you had to have one side, and then you debone and get the other side. And Molly could not get the other side for the life of her. I don't know if she ever really completed getting the other side. But when she cut it, it was perfect slices. And then when she still didn't win, Leah won the advantage, which means it made her exempt from being booted off.
It was a nice trick where we thought that Gummy Worm Molly was going to do bad and get sent home this episode. Well, and then she doesn't because she's too good for that.
Well, sometimes she seems one note because the kinds of foods that she's used to. And she even said, we never have salmon like that to cut. And I believe it where they're living. Why would they? Where would they get it? And
they fly it in.
Yeah,
they fly their seafood in.
But she goes, we just go to Walmart and get a couple of fillets there. And that's about the extent of my experience with having salmon. And I believe it because she's in one of those like we live in, the desert. I call it the desert.
But to be fair, Safi, we could go to that market, that special market, and we could get probably a whole salmon once in a while that we could fillet.
Yeah, but she said that they could not do that there, and I believe it because I've lived in Missouri, and she lives down the Springfield area. So it's just, it's just the way it is. But it didn't matter because she just thought of something that she never thought about cooking before. It isn't something she's used to, and she pulled it out.
She thought, how about I make a Mexican-style dinner? Street corn, some sort of tomatoey sauce, broccolini.
I think it was kind of like a chipotle sauce.
Very, very good dish. I wanted to eat her dish the most.
Yeah, and it was really almost kind of unlike her because she was doing things that she is not used to doing or tasting or eating. And she just kind of calmed herself down and gave it a good think, and she came up with it.
And that was another nice thing, was that Alexander helped her think about coming up with another element for her meal.
Yeah, because he said that there wasn't enough of variety.
Yeah.
And he helped her just by making a suggestion. And she was thinking, she didn't know right away what she could do. It took a little bit, but she managed to come up with something, which I thought that was really good.
In terms of everyone else, well, we already talked about my fair Masterchef Junior.
Little Ivy. And she always, she didn't win the challenge where you got exempt, but she always comes through on these where you're in the fight of your life. And if you don't do it, you're going to be booted off. And she, like Marco said earlier, she did a bouillabaisse, and apparently bouillabaisse has to be cooked for a long time. And she definitely did not have a long time. She had less than 1 hour. And she did, anyway, she did the best she could, and she pulled it out. And her rest of her plating and everything she made, it was good.
The remaining 2 contestants were the ones that we were most worried about, and the judges were most worried about. Like, everyone could kind of see the incoming train wrecks, unfortunately. You want to think that maybe they can pull it off and it's just camera trickery, but then they don't. And for one, Grayson, he had this bizarre dish where he poached salmon in olive oil.
That didn't sound appetizing.
I kind of thought it was interesting. Like, I kind of like wanted to try it. Like 10% want to try it.
But it would have all that oil in it. Ew.
I don't know.
And I can't figure out how he came up with that. Either. How do you come up with an idea like that? I just don't know.
I wouldn't come up with an idea like that.
I wouldn't either. I would,
We don't know. Like, maybe there's a dish that's really good where they do that. And it was similar to Ava, where she also chose a strange way to cook the salmon, where it's still, both of them sounded pretty good. Like, I would still eat all the dishes there if they were cooked perfectly, like with taking into account all the flaws at the end, like the raw stuff and stuff like that. And she chose to put salmon inside pastry and then bake it, and I had never heard of that before.
Well, you know what it was like?
So,
it was like a beef Wellington.
Yeah.
This was salmon.
And the reason why I say that is because Aaron said that her dish lacked originality or something, or creativity. Mm-hmm. And I thought, like, I've never even heard of that salmon in a pastry before. And so how could you say that it lacks creativity when it's something that not a lot of people even know about? Like, I've never heard of that before. Salmon and pastry?
No.
Like, I'd never heard of that.
Not even for an hors d'oeuvre.
And she took it out of the oven, and it was really unfortunate because you looked at the pastry dough, and it was clearly not cooked all the way. Like, you could tell. You could tell just by looking at it with your eyes. And she kept it out, and what did you know? Her dough was raw on the inside. And there's no bigger mistake in MasterChef than having something that's raw. Because that would make people sick, mm-hmm. and then people can't eat the food. So that is really the biggest crime. And she committed the biggest crime, unfortunately. And if only she had just put it back in and let it cook a little bit longer. So she went home, and Grayson, he had a shitty dish too. Very confusing elements, and there was some sort of a weird sauce, a fennel sauce that had a terrible texture, but he did not go home because they even said, which I liked hearing the judges really give their reasoning off camera almost, of like why they sent her home instead of him. They kind of say off camera, they say that this is the first mistake that Grayson has made, the first big mistake that he has made.
Yeah.
And I kind of disagree with that, because there's that one time he was team captain and he was complete trash, and he should have gone home then. And then the thing, wasn't he trash in the bake sale episode?
I don't know. To me, I can hardly remember those, because tonight was such a bad night for him, and they talked about some of the stuff he was working on currently.
Well, I will say that it was very nice to have an episode without any bullies, because it was just pure competition. It was just pure MasterChef at its finest. It wasn't any like outside influences, like negative influences of like people telling you what to do, people yelling at you, people with their huge egos. Like, there was none of that. It was just kids who were really likable, and they all like each other, cooking and competing. And then at the episode, Ava gets sent home, and literally, like, everyone in the whole room cries, including the judges. Like, even Daphne cries, and even Aaron a little bit. But yeah. Aaron, he really ruined the moment, like, really badly. Because he started saying some agenda bullshit about how, like, I grew up with a female chef as a mom, and the future really looks bright for female chefs. And it's like, the future has always looked bright for female chefs. There's been female chefs ever since the start of civilization. Has he ever heard of hunter-gatherers before?
Probably not.
The hunter-gatherer society? I mean, it's just typical, like, modern-day agenda bullshit, where it's like, women were held back for all these years, and it took MasterChef Junior to finally push female chefs ahead of the men chefs. There's never been a popular female chef before. Julia Child was actually a man. That's what it's like. It's like they just completely ignore any sort of history to fit their agenda, so that they can always be victims and put other people in victim mentality.
Yeah.
Right, Safi?
Yep.
I mean, wasn't that retarded? Like, didn't you just go like, God, he really ruined that moment? Like, he just, like, everyone else was, like, crying and, like, oh, no, it's sad that this girl's going home. And he's like, you know what's really important? Female chefs. The future of chefs is female. We are not going to have, what's the ravioli guy called, Safi?
I don't know.
What's the Chef Boyardee? We are not going to have Chef Boyardee in the future. In the future, we are going to have Chef Girlardee. Because the future is bright for female chefs. And I just went like, ugh! Like, God, this is so cringeworthy. It's such like, I think, Safi, I think that is the stupidest shit I've heard the entire season. What do you think? I mean, that is worse than Mafia Don saying, we're in the top 6, we don't need Gordon Ramsay. Like, that's worse than that. That's worse than anything that Troy ever said in season 1. That's the worst thing in Masterchef Junior history. Because how many fucking female chefs have we had on Masterchef? How many female chefs have we had on Masterchef Junior? And you're acting like women chefs have been held back ever since, like when? Like, just what a fucking retarded thing to say. So, Safi? Hey, Safi. What are you doing? Why are you sleeping?
Falling asleep.
What would you rate this episode?
Oh, well. I guess I would rate it an A-.
Really?
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing Alexander there. I thought he was very personable. I thought he was helpful. I liked the fact, like that you did, that he was around for the whole episode. And it was a lot more calmer and freer without that boy there who just was evicted last week. And I was thankful that you could see them without having to be pressured and stressed out and having somebody yell in their ears to do something, or that they're responsible, and that whatever, all the different stuff that he would say. Would you stop kicking me?
No.
And it felt free, and whatever happened. It just showed how supportive they were of each other, and how likable they were. And it was interesting when Ava, I call her the librarian, when she looked like she was going to get kicked off, and they said she didn't make the cut. That even the judges were very sad.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I already talked about that, Safi.
I know that,
isn't that
but
funny?
I just thought
because you were asleep. You were sound asleep.
I just thought it was interesting.
Well, you have to admit, it's not an A+ because of Aaron and his little agenda moment.
Well, yeah. But I was kind of weirded out by that.
He's like, let's make this moment all about me virtue signaling and talking about female chefs.
Virtue signaling.
That's what it's called. That's what it's called when people just say bullshit like that so that they can get props from other people. Like, after the show, Daphne probably said, that was a very courageous thing you said. I was always held back as a female chef until now. And that's why I've never become a popular chef. Oh, wait a second, I'm on MasterChef Junior. Whoops.
Oops.
I would give this episode a B+ because I thought it was pretty good. It was really simple. But the one thing that I did not like was, I don't know. I just thought it's too little too late. Because honestly, something we didn't really mention is that Mafia Don really tainted the whole season.
Yes, he did. And that's sad.
He made like almost every episode like negative. And now he's finally gone. And it just feels like too little too late. Like there's only 5 left. And we finally get an episode where it's just pure competition. And we don't have to worry about like a bully. Just going around bullying people. And it's sad that, like, you know, we had to wait all the way until when there's 5 people left.
Terrible.
To get that. Like,
terrible.
And the fact that they sent Epilepsy Girl home, I mean, this season is really trash. Like, the only thing you can really say about this season is that the majority of the kids were really nice.
Yes.
That's the only thing you can say about this season of why it's good.
Yeah, that's a shame.
So
if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to be one of our subscribers, we welcome all new subscribers for further discussion. And did you watch the episode? Are you going to... did you watch the one following it? Did you know about it, that they were going to do that? And we'll be talking tomorrow about the next episode after we watch it.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
See you soon.